Every morning, the alarm buzzed at precisely 6:15 a.m. It was the first note in a symphony Mia had conducted for years. The routine was her regime, a perfectly constructed sequence of events designed for maximum efficiency. Shower, a quick glance in the mirror, not to admire, but to check for professionalism, pre-planned outfit laid out the night before. Then, the gym. 45 minutes on the elliptical, eyes glued to the news, her mind already sorting through the day's tasks. After that, a quick drive to the office, where she should be the first one in, organizing her desk before anyone else arrived. Her days were a masterclass in organization, each hour partitioned and accounted for. There was a slot for everything. Deep work from 9 to 11, meetings from 11 to 1, lunch at her desk while reviewing emails. Even her breaks were scheduled. At 3 p.m., like clockwork, she would walk to the cafe downstairs. The walk itself was timed, a brisk 3-minute journey. The order was always the same: a large black Americano, no sugar, no cream. It was functional fuel, nothing more. She'd grab the cup, pay with a tap of her card, and be back at her desk before the steam had fully dissipated. This routine was her armor. It protected her from the chaos of the world, from the unpredictability that she found so unsettling. Her life was a spreadsheet, and every cell was filled in correctly. But beneath the surface of this perfectly curated existence, a quiet emptiness hummed. It was a low-frequency hum, easily ignored during the hustle of the day. But it grew louder in the quiet moments before sleep. It was the feeling of watching a movie of her own life, rather than actually living it. She was the director, the producer, and the star, but she had forgotten how to improvise. One Tuesday morning, the symphony hit a wrong note. The day started as usual: alarm, shower, gym, office. At 3 p.m., she walked to the cafe. The line was a little longer than usual, a minor disruption that caused a flicker of annoyance. When she finally got to the counter, the barista, a young man with kind eyes and a tired smile, took her order. "Large Americano, black," she said, her tone crisp and efficient. He nodded, scribbling on a cup before turning to the espresso machine. A few minutes later, he called out a name. It sounded like hers, but not quite. "Mia," he called. Mia looked up, saw the cup on the counter, and walked forward. "I think you mean Mia," she said, ready to correct him. But as he handed her the cup, she noticed two things. First, it was not an Americano. She saw a creamy swirl of steamed milk with a delicate heart drawn in the foam. It was a cappuccino. Second, written on the side of the cup, in a looping, almost cheerful script, was the name Mia. Her first instinct was to protest. This was wrong. This wasn't her order. This wasn't part of the plan. It was an error, a disruption to her carefully calibrated day. She opened her mouth to speak, to point out the mistake, to get the drink she always ordered. But then she paused. Something held her back. It was the sight of that small, imperfect heart floating in the foam. It was the name Mia. It was so close to her own, yet so different. It felt less like a thought and more like a whisper from a forgotten part of herself. What if she just did not correct him? What if, for once, she accepted the mistake? It felt like a tiny rebellion, a silent act of defiance against the rigid structure she had built around herself. It felt like the universe had gently nudged her, offering a small, sweet deviation from the path. A reminder that life doesn't always have to be perfect or predictable to be good. So, for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, Mia did something completely unplanned. Instead of grabbing the cup and marching back to her desk, she found an empty table by the window. She took a slow, deliberate sip of the cappuccino. The taste was a surprise, creamy, sweet, and comforting. It was the opposite of her bitter, functional Americano. It was not fuel. It was a treat. As she sat there, cradling the warm cup, she began to notice things. She saw the way the sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. She watched the people. She heard the low hum of conversations. She heard suddenly soothing hiss of the espresso machine. It was a beautiful rhythm of the cafe, a rhythm she was usually too rushed to hear. It was the rhythm of life, happening all around her, while she was always busy checking off her to-do list. She realized with a jolt how much of her life she had been living on autopilot. She had been so focused on executing the plan, on getting from point A to point B, that she had completely missed the journey. She had been moving through her days like a ghost, present in body but absent in spirit. That mistake, the wrong drink, the misspelled name, had not been a mistake at all. It was an invitation. It had broken the spell, creating a small crack in the fortress of her routine. Letting a little bit of light in, it opened up a space for her to breathe, to feel, to simply be. She was not the efficient project manager named Mia. In that moment, sitting with a stranger's drink. Her name was Nia. She did not have a schedule. Nia could sit and watch the world go by. Nia could enjoy a cappuccino just for the pleasure of it. This small, accidental moment of spontaneity was a quiet turning point. It was a rediscovery of a part of herself she had been too busy to notice. A part that craved warmth, sweetness, and a little bit of unplanned beauty. When she finally stood up to leave, the 3 p.m. slot in her schedule was long gone. But for the first time, she didn't care. The emails could wait. She walked back to the office, not with a sense of urgency, but with a sense of quiet calm. The world hadn't fallen apart because she had taken an unscheduled 20-minute break. The next morning, as she stood before the mirror, she saw herself a little differently. The lines of stress around her eyes seemed softer. She walked to the cafe at 3 p.m., but this time her steps were lighter, less driven. When she reached the counter, the same barista was there. He smiled. "The usual?" he asked. Mia paused, a small smile playing on her lips. And then she thought of the warm cup, the creamy foam, and the feeling of the sun on her face. She took a breath. "Actually," she said, "I will have a cappuccino." The barista's eyebrows went up in surprise, but he nodded, grabbing a fresh cup. "Name?" he asked. She smiled, a genuine, unhurried smile. "My name is Nia." Sometimes the universe whispers in the form of small mistakes or gentle disruptions. These are not errors in the code of our lives. They are invitations. They are gentle reminders to slow down, to look up from our screens and schedules, and to notice the world that is happening right in front of us. They are opportunities to become someone new, simply by remembering the parts of ourselves we have forgotten. If this story resonated with you, then wait for more moments of reflection.